Okay.
Today is Monday, January 23rd. I call this meeting to order. Ms. Sandy, can you please roll call?
Yes, Mr. Warren,
Present.
Mr. Sims,
Present.
Ms. Jacobs,
Present.
Mr. Brisker,
Present.
Mr. Henderson,
Here.
Mr. Lockett,
Present.
Mr. Brown.
Present.
You also have present Anna Dow, Larry Bankston, and Sandy Edmonds. You have a quorum.
All right, I need a motion to amend the agenda to add a Jason Davis's reinstatement request to the agenda. It's not on there. It was one that came in late Friday. So I need a motion to amend that.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
Okay, second. I'll second. Roll call it, please.
Mr. Brisker,
Yes.
Ms. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lockett,
Yes.
Mr. Sims,
Yes.
Mr. Warren.
Yes.
Okay, we will add that to the agenda under number 5, review of reciprocal auctioneer reinstatement applicants. It'll be item D.
What's his name?
Jason Davis.
Jason, yes.
I also need a motion to amend the agenda pertaining to item number 12, request by Mr. Freddie Phillips on in-state licensing renewals. That needs to be bumped up for time constraint purposes, if we could bump it up to maybe right after number 5.
I make a motion to amend the agenda to add that.
Second. Can I get a roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Brisker?
Yes.
Ms. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Henderson?
Yes.
Mr. Lockett?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. I need, if there's any public comment today on the agenda.
Good morning. It's great to be with you once again. I doubt I'm going to use anywhere near my 5 minutes. Mainly, I will constrain my comments to, well, first of all, I do want to address the approval of the minutes because I know there certainly should be an item in there wherein the complaint that I had stated was voted to dismiss, and y'all approved that unanimously. All I'm going to point out with regard to that is no one has taken me up on my offer for a polygraph. Again, it stands. I'll see you're laughing, Mr. Bankston. I'll put my arm in there if you put your arm right after me. No one has taken me up on my offer. They're not cheap, as you well know, and attorneys quite frequently do that with their own clients, Mr. Bankston, as you would also well know. The offer stands. I stand behind my assessment of that situation, and I am prepared to place my arm in a polygraph. So that'll be it for my discussion of that. I'm glad you found it to be somewhat humorous, Mr. Bankston. With regard to item number 11, I contacted the Alabama State Board late Friday at approximately 2 o'clock because that was when we got notified at 11 o'clock that item 10 was going to be on the agenda. I just want to state that when I contacted, I got a live person, and they got me the information that I was looking for. I found that to be a refreshing change from what I have encountered here, and I presented, and I'm sure each of you has seen it, an instance back in 2011 where a certified letter was sent mistakenly by the Board of Ethics to the LALB office, and rather than, it was signed for, but rather than contacting me and saying that, hey, I have a letter for you, you can come pick it up, and I would have been happy to sign off absolving any liability there too, 39 days went by that I was not extended that courtesy. So that pertains to establishing office hours and perhaps having a little bit more accountability of what would transpire in this office, which obviously I am supportive of number 10 in that instant. And there was a link on that you could see the certified letter that I sent as a result of that episode, to which I got 0 response. Now, I realize I was under a totally different administration, and I would hope that the situation would be different if something like that happened today. I'm certainly willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. I can only state what happened back then. But I think that goes to concentration. Dan Mahaney, if you want to call his number about what happened with him, about not having office hours, I think he could give you an earful. So that will conclude my commentary about number 11. I'm going to leave exclusively for him unless, I'll make a comment 1 minute prior to with regard to Freddie's item number 12, because I'm not an auctioneer anymore, and I think it would be more appropriate for him to address that. With regard to number 10, and then I'm going to sit down, I did look over the old agreement and the new agreement. It's an interesting contrast. I'll be curious to see the board's discussion of it, because clearly that's not something that would fall under executive session, so anything said about it is supposed to be said out in the open. I found the wording of the new agreement intriguing. I'm sure everyone has read it. I would hope you have, since you'll be voting on it. So I will wait and see what the board's commentary, what may have precipitated it. I know there was a cover letter. Didn't seem to have a whole lot to do with the content of the changes. That's just my own take on it in reading the cover letter, reading the old agreement, and reading the new agreement. So that's about it for me. I again appreciate the opportunity to be before you and look forward to us seeing what all happens in the rest of the meeting. Thank you so much.
Good morning, happy New Year to you all.
New Year.
Happy New Year. I'll take it in order. Number 8, financial, approving the chairman to go to the board, to the NAA convention. I mean, in the past, it doesn't say anything else about any other board members that may desire to go, but I think with the executive assistant, all of these should be taken up under the same umbrella. That's what we would have normally done, where the chairman and anybody else who decides to go would have the right to go, and not just waiting and tabling this until next year, which I'm appreciative that you're designed to go, and I hope you enjoy it and bring back some wholesome information that we can use here within our local state, and that's a good thing. I'm not opposing it, but I'm just saying that overall, I think anybody who wants to go that is in office and Ms. Edmonds should all have been put on this agenda for approval at this time as well, and not deferring it until a later time. The other thing that I want to talk about is the office hours very briefly. And, I've been a proponent of office hours here for quite a while, and there's just various reasons why that in most organizations and associations, state boards, there are very few that don't have people that you can either go to the office and see. And maybe if we, Mr. Edmonds, may feel jeopardized in being in a place on Newcastle that's isolated, even though there's a bank behind it, maybe moving that office into a building where there are other state agencies that would make her feel more comfortable being in the office. I think that's a win-win situation, but just not to have office hours and, the local person who may want to come by and pick up. Everybody's not technicalized. Very few people use the phone, and some people just might want to come by and drop it off and make sure they put it in somebody's hands. So I think that the board for putting this on the agenda and would give careful considerations of establishing office hours so that everyone can have access to knowing when this office is open and when it's not open. With that being said, the other thing was the agenda item that we're looking at, number 10, was put on very late. It's hard for us to get a lot of information to be able to address the board properly when things are not put on timely. And I've been saying this when I was on the board, and I'll say it now, that if we know in advance, it gives us due diligence to be able to do what we need to do and properly address the board concerning these issues. I think that's respectful to the board and also commendable to us that we have that desire to be able to do that and bring that pertinent information to the board. But, we're getting it at the last minute. We're having to scramble and make phone calls and things like that, and that's somewhat taxing on us, because a lot of times if those office, thank God that they do answer the phone there, and I was privileged to talk to a live person and to be able to talk to them. So I thought that was commendable as well. But that's something that I think that we need to really look at concerning agenda items, that we get them a lot earlier so that we can do due diligence and get the information to present to you all, whether we're pro or con against it, doesn't matter, but to have it is more beneficial to us. I'd like to thank you all again, and I'll be back to address you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for moving that item up.
Any other public comment? All right, I need to move forward to approval of the minutes from November 7th meeting, 2016.
I move that the minutes from the last meeting be approved.
Second.
Ms. Sims. Any discussion about them?
Yeah, question on the minutes. In the motion motion to exit executive session, that I was absent from the room for the vote, but I was here to open it. Yeah, I was here to open, I was here to motion to open the executive session, but I was absent from the room for the vote.
Going out of the executive session?
Yeah, coming out of the executive session. I thought I was still in here when we exited out.
I'm not going to say you're wrong, but when people leave the room, I write that down.
Okay, well, I mean, I might have stepped out to the restroom. I don't remember,
I think
but
you had a phone call actually, and you apologized because it was the day before elections or something.
yeah, okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't reset the timer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine.
Any further discussion?
No, sir.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. We got business.
With regard to my report, all of today is what's showing on your agenda. We have two licensees, or former licensees at this point, who have not paid the fines that were ordered by this board, specifically Sean Lateef. He was found responsible in 2015, assessed a $500 fine and no cost. And it was due by November 11th, which is right after our last meeting. He has not paid it, and we've not heard anything from him, and he has not renewed his license after that. So he did not renew for 2016 and 2017. Joel Allen Murphy, we had the hearing on. He had a $1,000 fine plus cost of $3,651.20. It was due by November 10th, again, right after our last meeting. He has not renewed for 2017. And as a matter of fact, I believe his letter came back from his current address, the last address we had, on file for him. Basically, what we're asking the board to do today is to go ahead and allow us to collect these fines. There are a number of ways to do it. One is we can file a claim against their bond. I believe we looked at both, they both had bonds in existence at the time of the findings of fact and judgment and hearing of both cases. So that would be available to us for both the fine plus the fine and cost on both individuals. We can turn it over to the state for collection. They have a new procedure now to collect amounts due. We have not done that before. I do not know how successful that would be.
If they have that income tax refund.
Oh, I'm sorry, if they have an income tax refund for the state of Louisiana. Who would be the collection agent in the state?
The
state would be.
Revenue Department.
Yeah, The Revenue Department of Revenue. Department?
Is it easier?
Yeah, they have a new section established for that.
Is it easier to go that route as opposed to?
No, the bond would be the easiest.
Okay.
Actually, I started this, the easiest. And then the final one is we would try to do collection ourselves. I'm going to tell you that's going to be somewhat difficult. Mr. Murphy, last I heard, had moved probably back to Arkansas. Mr. Lateef, he was not at his official location last time we knew. I don't know that we've ever had a letter come back on him, but I cannot currently tell you that I know the whereabouts of these two individuals.
And at the current time, both of these persons have not renewed their licenses, is that correct?
That's correct.
So they're unable to practice auctioneering in the state of Louisiana?
That's correct. They would have to renew their license to legally do it. That's correct.
Okay.
I make a motion to
take whatever legal means that are necessary to collect these fines and costs.
I'd like to put up a dual motion, Mr. Chairman, that we allow the State Revenue Department to do the collection. If they're set up to do it, as Mr. Bankston, I think, and Ms. Dodd has indicated.
There was a statute passed, and they are set up to do it. The problem is that this is only their state income tax, and Mr. Murphy is, last I checked, was a resident of Arkansas.
Well, if they can do it, can they cross lines and do it? That's
what I
well,
don't know.
Mr. Bankston said no.
No, I don't think so.
Only to the extent they have income in Louisiana.
I see.
They don't-
Well, I think they don't.
As far as I know,
because they
then he's
can't-
not auctioneering.
They can't
Let me rephrase
practice.
the motion. Let me rephrase.
I would recommend filing on the bonds first. That would be the
Okay, then
easiest.
I'd
Make
go
a
along
motion
with
to
that.
file on the bonds to collect these monies that are due.
And I'd second that motion.
Second. Any further discussion about it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Now, we don't need a motion to suspend them indefinitely either.
No.
No, I mean, they're basically, I think, our judgments now officially say you can't do anything until you take care of this. But we give them time to take care of business in both cases.
All right. Let's bring us to agenda item number 2, the potential increase in the amount of individual and/or business bonds for licensure.
Yeah, I'd like to be heard on that.
Okay.
With the economy the way it is right now, which I think it's pretty bad in the New Orleans area right now, and everything's going up, taxes, et cetera, I would be against an increase on the bonds because we do have a surplus in our accounts right now, and unless good cause can be shown that we need to increase the bonds based on the amount of forfeitures we've been having, I would vote against that. You don't have that many forfeitures that are going to be over the amount of the bond.
That's kind of my sentiments on it. We don't really cash, unless I'm incorrect here, we don't
Right.
really file on bonds
Right.
that
Very
often
few- there've
enough
been
to
very few
really
times that
increase
we've
it. So
done that.
that's, if I can make a suggestion, that would be it, is not to increase them at this point in
Okay.
time.
May I be heard on something,
Yes.
just so we're aware? We do have cases where claims are made which exceed the $10,000 limit. Right now, residential Louisiana auctioneers can have one bond for both their business and their individual. And that does cause, in some of the high-end auctions, questions with regard whether we'll be able to make anyone affected by these particular, claims or misdeeds by an auctioneer in a high-end auction. Difficult to collect on. We're not requiring right now E&O insurance for auction either. That may cure the problem, but I would ask the board to keep that in mind and potentially look into whether there are sufficient high-end auctions in the state of Louisiana to make it worthwhile to perhaps do this on a prorated basis. The more expensive or more successful your auction, perhaps you should have more than just $10,000 out there to cover what's going on. Because this actually does, in some sense, protect the auctioneer. It's like insurance in that way.
I would like to put up a motion at this time that it be deferred until such time as a proper foundation is shown that we actually need to increase it, which is going to affect the cost for every auctioneer in the state of Louisiana. I just don't think we have enough information on that right now, and I don't think we've had enough bond forfeitures that have gone over the amount of the initial bond.
You hadn't recently, but in the past, you've had some that's gone in.
Well, but you haven't had that many.
$40,000.
You know, you haven't had that
Let me ask you
many.
this, Darlene. And I'm not picking on any auctioneer in this state, I'm gonna use one for an example. New Orleans Gallery's sitting there doing several $1 million at a pop on auctions. Would you have a problem with making a business put up a $50,000 bond to this board? I've had auctioneers ask me, they'll go along with the individual auctioneer, but if you got an auction business that's active and that's doing business like Anna's talking about, maybe on a pro-rata basis or whatever, I think there needs to be a bond put up on that business besides, the auctioneer shouldn't carry that whole load.
There are only 2 or 3 auction houses in the city that do that volume of business, and you've named one of them.
Right.
The rest of them are individual mom and pop auctioneers. They may incorporate their business, but they do auctions on a part-time basis, just as I do. And I think with the economy the way it is, overhead, et cetera, it's going to be a hardship on them to increase the amount of the bond. So I would vote that it be deferred, Mr. Chairman, as you have suggested, until such time as we have more information, and give other people a chance to speak and be heard on that issue.
Is there any further discussion on it? I mean, we got two motions, and
Yeah.
hers, so how, I mean,
You would have to hear one and then,
I
unless,
haven't made a motion.
Yeah, we only have one motion.
oh, we didn't-
I've made a motion.
do I need a second on her motion then?
Restate the motion.
The motion is to defer until proper foundation is shown that it must be increased due to bond claims that are happening.
Right. That's the motion.
Need a second? If not, another motion?
I'll second to defer.
Got a second to defer? So,
I just like to
1
say,
minute
Mr. Chairman.
public rule?
Roll call.
Yeah.
And just very quickly, because we've gotten negative feedback from auctioneers about trying to increase the bond as well through emails, things like that. And I agree with Ms. Jacobs that the state of the economy is pretty much putting a lot of people in a very awkward situation. The last thing I would say is, most of the auctioneers, as she stated again, reiterating, are not in it on a full-time basis, and they're mom and pops. They're not, Mr. Sims did make a valid point with New Orleans Auction Gallery, but on the other side, there were some things that were done that they didn't vote on. So at the same time, that's just an isolated incident, but that's not the norm throughout the auction industry. And I think we need to be more compassionate for the norm instead of the exception to the norm.
I guess my only commentary is going to be hearing the name of New Orleans Auction Gallery invoked. When that situation came up, there was a concerted effort by this board, the existing board, not to do anything. Ms. Edmonds said, quote, "We only had 6 people contact us, and not even all of those filed complaints." One of those complaints involved fake paintings that were auctioned for over $100,000. And they had Christie's rejection stickers on the back of them at the time New Orleans Auction Galleries took them in. And they went on and auctioned them anyway. A Mossad Puritan out in Los Angeles, California was victimized for over $100,000. And it doesn't really matter if you raise the bond limit to $1 million. If you're going to push stuff like that under the carpet, it's not going to matter. So New Orleans Auction Gallery had kind of faded from my memory. Thank you for refreshing it, Mr. Sims. I would commend the board if you, obviously I would assume you got feedback because the momentum on this seemed favorable last meeting. But I will again emphasize, it doesn't matter what the size of the bond is, it's all a function of how this board handles matters like that. And I'm just going to say this board failed miserably with regard to New Orleans Auction Gallery. Failed miserably.
Yeah, may I answer that, Mr. Chairman? Sure. I mean, the issue before the board is whether or not we raise the bonds for everybody in the state, not just New Orleans Auction Exchange. New Orleans Auction Exchange is a very solvent company. They do business, and if they make a mistake in not certifying a painting, they can be sued, and they can respond in damages to them.
And ownership has changed of that business.
That's right. But the average mom and pop auctioneer that maybe only holds 1 or 2 auctions a year and they're licensed with the board can't afford all of these extra fees. Not everyone is a successful auctioneer, like some of the members, Mr. Chairman, and some of the other members of this board, Mr. Anderson, who do this totally as a living. I don't. I have another profession. And that's why I'm against it. A lot of people just can't afford it. And you see that by some of the fines that we've levied here, where people, rather than paying the fines, are not paying the fines, and they're just letting their license lapse, because they probably can't afford it. And I think that has to be taken certainly into consideration. I would need, before I could vote in favor of increasing it, I would need more information. I'd need the Louisiana Auctioneers Association certainly to weigh in on this, and they haven't yet, to poll their members, of which I'm a member of that organization, because I think you're going to find a lot of no's they're going to support the position on raising it. Just because the economy's bad and they can't afford it.
Nah, we're gonna move on. Yeah, we're gonna move on.
Is this open for discussion?
It's still open for discussion. We have roll call it.
I've talked to some auctioneers. Some of them belong to the LAA, some of them don't. But the vast majority I've talked to, of course, the bigger, more successful auctioneers, they want something. Even the ones that I talk to that I've talked to several mom and pops that are mostly part-time, that I know, and they don't run auction houses, but they do auctions on occasion. They don't have a problem with it as long as we keep it in reason. That's the feedback I've got now. As far as the economy's not real bad in North Louisiana, but it's not real good, but it's holding its own. It's not like New Orleans. If you want to be honest, Darlene, New Orleans' economy hadn't come back since Hurricane Katrina.
Exactly. It's very bad
and it won't
down
be back for another 20 years.
Well,
But
you could be right.
I gotta say this, I can't sympathize with that.
Understand.
And it's
I
no
see where you're coming
reflection
from.
on you, and it's no reflection on auctioneers in New Orleans. It's just that somewhere down the line, you gotta draw the line. We got one guy who hadn't paid his fine, hauled tail across the Arkansas line up there where you couldn't do nothing to him. The other guy, I don't know nothing about. Don't know, I don't even remember the cases or what it was about. But if this board finds somebody, he needs to be collected, and it's gonna wind up like we've done. We gave him another chance, and now I had to file on his bonds, collect his fines and fees. So, I mean, this, I've been on this board since 2011, and practically every time I've come down here for 3 years, every month, there was a doggone hearing of some form of some type. And some of that stuff, I had my doubts on some of it, but under my experience as an auctioneer, really what the person done, it was a communication problem between him and the client a lot of it. Now, I don't know what we're gonna do, but I'm telling you, Sandy talked to me about it last week. She talked to T.S. Holt. Well, I understand T.S. Holt might write a lot of bonds here. But I know other states that are looking at right now. I know 2 states are looking to go into $100,000 bond. So I talked to 2 board members in that state that I know personally. Because I knew they were fixing to do it, and I asked them. They're going to do it in the next 6 months, but they don't have to go to the legislature. I'm sure we'll have a fight in the legislature as we go, and it's a fight that this board shouldn't be prosecuted by trying to do what's right. Now, I don't have a problem with deferring it, but I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to have to vote against it. And I mean, it's all because I'm just voicing an opinion of what my people have done.
You would
me
vote
want.
for it to increase the bond.
I'd vote for it,
For
yes.
it, not against it.
I'm not saying I'd vote for a $50,000 bond. I would not do that. But I would vote to probably step increase it and change it from $10,000 to $20,000, and 2 years later raise it to $30,000 and let it cap right there for a while to see what it does. But I am not going to vote no hardship on anybody for a $50,000 bond, and I know a lot of them can't go get. I'm not going to do that. But there again, a lot of these problems that we've had have come out of my district, and they have. And some of them came out of Jacob's district, or then Hal McMullen's district. I mean, we got to do something to tighten this up. I mean, if you're going to go do a bankruptcy auction now, and this board needs to put this out to all the auctioneers, because there's a lot of auctioneers running right now trying to get government auctions. And I'll tell you, it don't matter if it's a bankruptcy court, the IRS, or any other government agency. If that sale is valued at whatever it's appraised at, you got to put a bond up for that amount of money. There ain't no more $10,000 bonds at the government. So, That's the way my people feel, and I feel I got to say that. Thank you, sir.
I mean, I'm not, let me preface this by stating I'm not bragging. However, and with my business that we have in Hammond, I mean, honestly, we could raise it to $1 million and we would be okay. However, I've talked to auctioneers in my region. I've talked to auctioneers that work for me. And at this point in time, that's why I made the suggestion. I realize we disagree on this, Mr. Sims, but I don't.
Agree and disagree.
Yeah, that's fine.
No
we're
problem.
good.
You don't have a problem.
Right now, it just doesn't feel like the average auctioneer at this point in time, and especially when I asked Sandy about how many times we filed on a bond. Just do I think something could happen down the road? Yes. Do I actually do like your stair step proposal there myself, but I have to kind of sympathize with the average auctioneer, so to speak, for that reason.
And either that, it's even been mentioned to me that maybe we could take some of this surplus money we got and make a recovery fund. Well, I mean, I don't think every auctioneer in the state ought to be paying into that recovery fund for one auctioneer is bad.
That's true.
Either. But, there's a lot of ways to look at it. I mean, I was asked to bring it up and I brought it up. It's whatever this board decides is the way I'm gonna abide by it, and I'm not gonna hear no complaint out of me either. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, they saw it and they think it's worthwhile, and I did what I was asked.
I'll stand right here and say this.
Okay.
Mr. Sims, if what you were proposing was legitimately feasible on a case-by-case basis when auctioneers do have claims that exceed their bonds, we can increase that auctioneer, require the auctioneer to increase his bond based on that claim, and that individual will have to pay that particular bond, but everybody should. If you do that, then you will put an auctioneer back in responsibility for the action, if that was a case-by-case basis. But overall, I think what you said, Mr. Chairman, is the consensus of what I've heard, what we got from emails. Thank you, sir.
And maybe we should look at increasing the business bond on a pro rata basis and leave the auctioneer bond at where it is. That wouldn't affect the small auctioneer.
We might need to look at the business bond, put it on the next agenda, and go there.
That's why I agree with Mr. Darlene on deferring.
So we got a motion from Darlene to defer the individual auction license until further proof.
Yeah.
As brought up further
Yeah,
case,
right.
and then you second it.
Second that.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll vote for it.
Okay, do we need to go ahead and motion to put the business agenda, a business bond on the agenda for next meeting?
I'll make a motion to do so.
I'll second that motion.
Second. All those in favor, any further discussion?
Well, since there's a vote on that, can I just ask, as everybody knows in Louisiana, if you have an individual, if you have a business, for instance mine, your personal license it automatically attaches to the business license, so you weren't required to get a business license. So for folks that are in that boat, specifically someone like I was, will they or will they not be required to conform to that requirement?
That's something I guess we have to discuss.
We'll
at the
have to
next
discuss it at the next
meeting.
meeting, yeah.
Yeah, it's deferred
It's a
until the
valid-
next
valid
meeting,
point,
and,
Yeah.
Then I would make the recommendation that the legal vote ascertain whether it would or would not apply. Because I'm not alone in that. I would imagine the vast majority. Why would you get a business license? Most people go ahead and let it attach to their personal license. It's one of the advantages to being in state. So.
And I'll accept Mr. Burns' request as well, because I do have both connected to one.
Do you have Reverend, you have a corporation? And in other words, you have your name and then a corporation. I just want to, that's what I have.
Yes, and so I think that would be advantageous to the purpose of why he's an auctioneer.
It's almost like an individual. I see what you're talking about.
But the business ain't gonna. Can I make a suggestion? And I'll put this in the form of a motion if it's necessary.
Did away with it?
If I'm not mistaken, the Louisiana Revised Statute says that if you have an auctioneer's license and you have an auction business, which is an LLC or a corporation in Louisiana, or a limited partnership, it's my understanding the board has not enforced that you have to have a business license. Am I correct in that, Anna?
That's correct.
So therefore.
If you're a
I'm-
resident. If you're a resident auctioneer. Right.
Now, I'm gonna make a motion that if an auctioneer in the state of Louisiana, if he has an LLC, sole proprietorship, a corporation, or a limited partnership, and involves an auction business, they're gonna have to have a business license with a higher bond.
I couldn't hear the last statement. You're gonna require, you gotta have a business license.
You're gonna have to be required to have a business license, which if you're already a licensed resident auctioneer, the business license won't cost you any additional money. But you're gonna have to put up a bigger bond for that corporation, or that LLC, or limited liability, or whatever.
I'd like to move that be deferred to a future meeting.
Next
I'm not
meeting, yeah.
prepared to
But no, we're talking about
discuss
putting it
that.
on the next agenda.
Right.
That's all.
Okay.
So we got a motion to put on the agenda for next time.
I'll second that.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any further discussion? Anybody opposed? Motion passes. All right, here. Let's move on to item number 3, the continued discussion of online auctions. Anything further we need to discuss?
I see, Mr. Warren, that you will be attending the NAA convention
Yes.
in Ohio.
That's the plan.
I'm sure that they're going to have a discussion about that there, because a lot of people are going to online auctions. And I would like to ask you to be so kind as to get whatever information you can and bring it back to this board. Because this is important to me, because I'm in the process of building an auction house right now on Magazine Street, which is going to do almost everything online. And it's going to be for real property, so I'm very interested in this.
Anna, where do we stand on this deal on these online auctions like eBay and all that stuff that the legislature came after us whenever we tried to oppose it and they wouldn't stand with us and they sided with them? Where does that stand?
All right, as we discussed at the last meeting, at the present time, that still is part of our statute. Basically, it excludes auctioneers, or excuse me, exclude those who sell property through an internet-based trading platform unless such person's activities constitute an auction as defined in paragraph 3. And as we discussed last time, that has always been interpreted as timed auctions. That what we have done is saying if you're on the internet in a timed auction, which means it cancels at a certain time and it's over, that we do not regulate it. I had asked the board to consider that we actually change by regulation the definition of timed auctions versus not timed auctions to show that those that are extended past a certain time. In other words, if someone's still bidding on it at the time of the announced closure, it's extended past that time. If there's activity, then we would like to consider those as regulated auctions under our statute. And I believe we could do it by regulation or by amendment of the statute itself. It's my understanding that eBay has not been so aggressive as far as forcing the states out of regulation of eBay for various reasons. And we have the ability to go back in and change our statute however we wish to do so. That would be up to the board to make that decision. And that was, again, I gave everybody...
You did give us a very good analysis of it.
Right, and I gave it in writing. If you need it again, just let me know.
But from what I understand, it will probably be a very hot topic at the National Convention. There's a lot of
Well,
states
if we got to go to the
legislating that.
legislature with any of this, we can't wait
No.
till July.
No. There's some things we can go through regulation now. It wouldn't be over with before July, obviously, because it takes us...
I would like to see what other
approximately 6 months.
states are doing.